because he remembered those details. And Josh Steinglass rebutted in his summation that, this wasn't a catch and kill meeting by saying just because they didn't use the word catch and kill, that doesn't mean that was what the focus of that Trump Tower meeting was. All right.
Yeah, I think that these are interesting questions for the prosecution. They go to the origin of this. And, another thing we talked a lot about in covering this trial, and again, it's not to second guess everything. It's far easier to watch a trial than litigate one. But they began with Pecker. They did Cohen at the end. Cohen hit some turbulence. They doubled back in the summation. We had a lot of discussions about that approach. I think it's also a positive, not slam dunk, don't mishear me, it's early going, but a positive sign that at least the jury is following that chronology. They're going back to the beginning, and they're starting with the first witness plus Cohen, the last witness. Another way to say this is they've asked for readback of testimony by the prosecution's first and last witness.
Can we talk about Blanche yesterday and the rebukes that he got from the judge? I think it's worth lingering on that, because I do wonder that he said to them, you can't put Donald Trump in jail based on the words of Michael Cohen, who he called a liar, the gloat, the greatest liar of all time. The judge was furious about that. He called it outrageous, that it couldn't possibly be an accident. And from what we were discussing about Todd Blanche, all the lawyers have agreed that no, of course it wasn't an accident. How does a sentiment like that, even though they are not in charge of putting him in jail, and even though Juan Mershon came in and said, I'm in charge of that, and maybe jail time's not even on the table for an offense like this, how does that potentially linger with the jury? Especially, this is a novel case. It's also a novel case against a former president of the United States, one whose supporters get very angry.
So I'll take a crack at that. I think I'd probably disagree if it's a novel case, other than it's a novel case because it's so defendant. I don't think it's that unusual, and Catherine can speak to it more in terms of the sort of bread and butter false business records. But I do think, getting to the substance of your question, which is, I have always been concerned that a jury is going to hold the state to an even higher standard because of who the defendant is. It's only natural that we would have had a defense and afflicted juror waking up and thinking about what this means, that it will weigh on them more than just a normal criminal case. I'm not saying it should. I'm just saying that.
But of course it does.
Exactly.
The times we're living in, who that person is, it naturally will.
Exactly. Even if it weren't sort of a Donald Trump, larger than life controversial figure, just any former president, you could weigh on you. Todd, that is what makes what Todd Blanche did particularly pernicious, because it sort of doubles down on that. It is always improper to talk about sentencing at the guilt phase. Everybody knows that. Defense lawyer, prosecutor, everybody knows you cannot do it. And there was no actual defense from Todd when the judge said, I think this is intentional, and what you have to say, Todd Blanche did not say. It was inadvertent, and it clearly, in my view, it's just not possible for that to be the case. And so the judge did everything he possibly could to sort of unring that bell, but you can't unring the bell.
What about the violence part of this, Ari? The prosecution brought this up. They tried to get this into their summation. The defense argued it was prejudicial, but when Donald Trump says something, when he goes after somebody, his supporters get really angry, and they go after that person online. Sometimes they dox that person. Sometimes they harass them in person. People have had threats that have forced them to get security. It happens to Republicans as well. Look what happened to Lindsey Graham in the airport right after January 6th, and him saying that Donald Trump, was responsible for it. The jury, they've got to feel that. They've got to understand that even though their identities have been kept quiet, that there's a chance that somebody's going to figure out who they are.
Yeah, I think the hope is that these individuals who have been very carefully selected in this process have been protected up to this point, that they have confidence in the system, and that doesn't sway them. There are other cases. They tried El Chapo in the United States. People had credible reasons to worry about that, but the system went forward. And so I think here, we're watching all this. The notes are about the substance. They're not about those other outside things, although that's relevant.
I think that's the reason why the Jean Carroll, both cases, we don't know who those jurors are.
Still.
Judge Lewis Kaplan said to them, if I were you, I wouldn't be speaking to the press to let anyone know who you are. And I think in this case, whatever the verdict is, I think these jurors will probably follow suit. It's their choice not to, but they might do the same thing, and we will never hear from them again.
I know it's bad to speculate and to guess about how long it's going to take any jury to deliberate and where they might go, but let's do it. Why not? We are 3 hours and 50 minutes into the deliberations. They came back with a question at 2 hours, or at about the 3 hour mark. What is your sense of how long this jury might deliberate on this case? What if you were to guess, what would you guess?
I always said Friday. Actually, I said maybe Thursday. But now with all of this repack, and they might have more questions. I think it's a good sign. Again, you don't want to say for the prosecuting defense, but the good sign of this jury is really engaged. So they immediately jump to that, Trump Tower meeting. They immediately jump to, let's see if Michael Cohen and David Pecker's stories match. That means they're thinking they're ready to go.
Ari, I gotta let you go in a second, but I want to ask you one last question. As you watch this unfold, is there something in particular in terms of a question that you're going to be looking out for as this goes on to give you a good idea of where the verdict is heading?
If we get more jury questions, I think the real key is, are they following the DA's case, and do they look like they're running that down and debating that, or something else? And remember, in the closing, we were told a lot of this stuff about Cohen and other things are distractions. That was the DA's team's argument. The jury, though, was going to decide that. And so here, at a minimum, you got 3 questions that go in the DA's direction. The Cohen question could go either way. Again, we just don't know how they're comparing.
How do you tell whether they're following the DA's case or the defense's case?
If you're the DA, you want them talking about catch and kill, campaign crimes, campaign motivation, secret meetings, and potentially fraud and financial malfeasance. And if you're the defense, you want them talking about Michael Cohen, maybe something from Costello, although that, it's hard to imagine what they want from that, but in fairness, you'd want that. And other vagaries of campaign finance, law, confusion, things that were really what they cross-examined on. And so the Cohen part is part of that, but that's what we're going to be watching. And so now they're going to have the evidence read back, the testimonial evidence, and then if they have more questions, we're going to follow those and see, okay, what are they asking about? What are they interested in? Because you had 20 plus days and 20 plus witnesses. You're not going to spend 20 days doing it in equal time. This isn't a reboot of reliving the whole thing. This is really diving into what they remember, what they think will help them get to a potential verdict.
Andrew, I'm going to let you go as well, so I'll give you one last word also.
Well, I just wanted to go back to something Ari said to sort of underscore it, and I'll give you a story. One of my very first trials, all the notes that came out were all about things that the defense raised, and I, of course, freaked out. I was like, well, the case is lost. And the senior person who is sort of sitting with me during that trial said, no, don't worry about it. They're just testing what the defense said to see if there's any merit to it. He was totally right. They asked those notes, and it came back, and there was a guilty verdict. So it's just a way of saying you really don't know if this is to read this the opposite way. I mean, it is really hard to read notes.
Never judge a book by its cover, I think is the lesson here. Andrew Weissman, Ari Melberg. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Good to have you on this. And come back if there is any other question or a bell ringing.
I'm saying bye, I promise.
Okay, good. All right, let's go to MSNBC legal correspondent and host of MSNBC's The Katie Phang Show, Katie Phang. So, Katie, I want to read, before you get into who the jury is, I want to read a little bit from what we think might be read back to the jury regarding their first question. This is David Pecker's testimony about the phone conversation with Donald Trump while Pecker was in the investor meeting. Here's what our friend Gary Grumbach, who's one of our reporters in the overflow room, believes the testimony is from. This is, where were you when you got this call from Donald Trump? The answer from Pecker: I was at one of my largest investors meetings in New Jersey. Question: how did the call come in? Answer: oh, I was making a presentation and an update on our business. And the assistant in the office came into the conference room and said, "There is a call for you from Donald Trump." And I left and I took the call. Question: and you could tell us about the conversation you had that day with Donald Trump? Answer: yes. When I got on the phone, Mr. Trump said to me, "I spoke to Michael. Karen is a nice girl." Karen as in Karen McDougal. Is it true that a Mexican group is looking to buy her story for $8 million? I said, absolutely don't believe that there is a Mexican group out there to buy a story for $8 million. And then he said, "What do you think I should do?" And I said, "I think you should buy the story and take it off the market." Question: so when did the subject of Karen McDougal come up? Donald Trump described her as a nice girl. So when the subject of Karen McDougal came up, Donald Trump described her as a nice girl. Answer from David Pecker: yes. Catherine, I'm going to throw that to you before I go to Katie.
This is, well, for the prosecution, again, as Andrew said, you don't know whether it's like good for the defense or good for the prosecution. But for the prosecution, if I'm sitting there, I want the jury to hear that again. And that's, I'm going to make sure when they're arguing, let's read back that the jury should hear. I'm the prosecution picking out that and making sure. If I'm the defense, like, well, they really didn't want to hear all of that. I want them to hear the whole readback again, the whole testimony again read back to them. And it'll be a court reporter who'll be reading it back.
I think there's a little bit more I can read from, and it's interesting to remind ourselves what the testimony was about. So again, when the subject Karen McDougal came up, Donald Trump described her as a nice girl. Yes. Question: based on your conversation with Mr. Trump, did you have an understanding as to whether he was aware of the specifics of Karen McDougal's description of the affair? Answer from David Pecker: yes, I did. Question: what made you come to such an understanding? Answer: I think that Michael Cohen spoke to Donald Trump, which he said he was going to do, which Donald Trump said on the phone that, quote, "I spoke to Michael." And I believe that when Mr. Trump said that to me over the phone, that she was a nice girl, I believe that he knew who she was. Question: why would you recommend to Donald Trump purchasing the story? Answer: I believe the story was true. This is from David Pecker again. I think it would have been a very embarrassing to himself, and also, key here, to his campaign. Question: after your conversation with Donald Trump, did you have another conversation with Michael Cohen? Answer: yes. On the conversation with Donald Trump, he said to me clearly that he doesn't buy stories because it always gets out. And he said to me that Michael Cohen would be calling me. He was going to speak to Michael, and he would be calling me. Question: you used a pronoun there. Answer: I'm sorry. That's okay. I'm sorry about that. When you said he in that last answer, were you referring to Donald Trump? Yes, I was. I'm sorry. So did there come a time when Michael Cohen followed up with you? Answer: yes, he called me that day or the next day. Question: tell us about that conversation. Answer: he called me and he said that you should go ahead and buy this story. And he said, I'm going to have Dylan Howard call you. It's interesting because David Pecker, and the prosecution tried to make a point of this, David Pecker likes Donald Trump. David Pecker does not have a motive to lie about Donald Trump.
Called him his mentor.
There's no animosity from David Pecker to Donald Trump. Yes, there's animosity from Michael Cohen. Yes, Michael Cohen is angry. Michael Cohen.
All right.
Do you remember when roughly that meeting was in August? Answer: it was in the whole time, or was she in and out? She was in and out. How about Michael Cohen and Donald Trump? Were they in there for the duration of that meeting? Answer, yes. How did the meeting come about? How did you know to go? I received a call from Michael Cohen telling me that the boss wanted to see me. That's how, when I spoke to Michael Cohen, that's how they would refer to Donald Trump, as the boss. What did you understand the purpose of the meeting to be before you actually got there? Pecker testifies, most of the time when I receive a call from Michael Cohen, he wanted something. So I assumed that they were going to ask, or that I was going to be asked for something. I didn't know what it was going to be before I got there. Can you describe for the jury what happened at that meeting, please? Answer, at that meeting, Donald Trump and Michael, they asked me what I can do and what my magazines can do to help the campaign. So thinking about it, as I did previously, I said what I would do is I would run or publish positive stories about Mr. Trump, and then I would publish negative stories about his opponents. And I said that I would also be the eyes and ears. I said I would be your eyes and ears because I know that the Trump organization had a very small staff. And then I said that anything that I hear in the marketplace, if I hear anything negative about yourself, or if I hear anything negative or anything about women selling stories, I would notify Michael Cohen, as I did over the last several years. I would notify Michael Cohen, and then he would be able to have them killed in another magazine, or have them not be published, or somebody would have to purchase them. Purchase the negative stories about Mr. Trump so that they would not get published to me? Answer, that they would not get published, yes. Question, so I want to break that down a little bit. First of all, when you offered, that was withdrawn, so you offered to publish positive stories about Mr. Trump? Answer, yes. Question, to publish negative stories about his opponents? Yes. And to alert him through Michael Cohen when you came across damaging information, particularly regarding women? Answer, yes. And the idea was that so Mr. Trump and Mr. Cohen could prevent that information from being published? Answer, yes. So you mentioned women in particular. All right, so that's a little bit of Dave Pepper's testimony regarding the Trump Tower meeting. The jury also asked for a testimony from Michael Cohen, presumably trying to see how they line up. We are going to sneak in a very quick break. The jury has not been let back this testimony yet. They're still waiting in the courtroom. We're going to find out why that might be in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. All the girl groups. I'll tell you what's going on in here in a minute. All the drugs. The money. The baby. The boy bands.
All that and MTV DJ Downtown Julie Brown.
Also singer-songwriter Lisa Loeb.
You're probably gonna get up and dance. You might even make up some fake lyrics.
90s on 9.
All that.
Bag of chips not included.
Channel 9 and the all-new Sirius XM app.
In Nina's forsaken second opinion and disrupting the world of late-stage cancer.
Star at the end. I can relate to it at college level. I knew how I played had a direct reflection on my college team. My college teammates, the amount of confidence that I instilled in them. And then I played with stars at that level, where even though things didn't look the best, like I'll give you an example. When I was with Portland, the first year, the first round, went to 7 games, we played Dallas Mavericks. We lost the first 3.
Yeah,
And then won the
they
next
set
3.
it up.
Right.
Yep.
Then won the next 3 and then lost in game 7. But the amount of confidence that she and Damon Stoudemire, the amount of confidence that those guys had, it's contagious. Like, oh shoot, you win 1, it's 3-1. Oh man, all we gotta do is win the next one, then you win the next one. Like man, it's 3-2. Can you imagine the pressure they're under after we win the next one and it goes to a game 7? Then you win that one. Now it's like, oh shoot, like you're there. You were there, and at that seen as this is impossible to come back from. It's the fact that you won 3 in a row. Shoot, you won 3 in a row. Why not win 4 in a row? But again,
Right.
all that starts with the confidence of the guys at the top, and it trickles down to everyone else.
How much of that AD is just a asset, meaning like just watching them be confident, and how much of it is a specific, hey y'all, we got this?
Both. I think it's because the thing about leaders is leadership comes in so many different forms. one of the best leaders I played with was Tim Duncan. He said very little. He said very little. Avery Johnson was the vocal leader of the team. Mario Ellie was the vocal leader of the team. But Tim Duncan led in a completely different way than those guys did. So I think you have guys that lead vocally and you have guys that lead physically. It's very rare that you, not to say that it doesn't happen, because to me, Anthony Edwards is that guy for Minnesota that does both.
Right.
He leads with his mouth, but he also leads with his body. And usually, a lot of times, you have one that leads one way and one that leads another way.
Well, sometimes you do get the case where someone, so I'll give you a great example. In Phoenix, Steve Nash was a guy that was lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember there were moments where he would literally sit up, talk, and you always remember those moments because, like, oh man, Steve's
they're very rare.
saying something out loud. He's making it very obvious and very specific. And the irony is, the one that I always remember, even though we lost that game, it was Game 5 of the conference finals when we're down to the Lakers at halftime. It was down a considerable amount, and Steve gets up and he says, "These guys are waiting to break. You just have to push them." And we make this furious comeback, and Jay Rich hits spank shot 3, tie the game up, and wow, this thing's going overtime. And Manchester just taking this awful 3 with like 20 seconds on the shot clock, and the whole team they were angry, and we're thinking, man, we did it, we did it. And then everyone knows how it ends. Kobe Bryant puts up that second shot that's an air ball. Artest grabs a rebound, lays it up. They win the game. They carry on their shoulders. After the game, with my guys that works for the Lakers, so man, we were waiting for the end of the game, so that they were gonna come in the shower. We thought he blew not only the game but the series. And in moments' notice, he goes from villain to hero. But I'll never forget that game because that was one of those rare Steve Nash issues. He stood up and he addressed everybody in the locker room. And it fired the team up for sure. So those are things that really interest me. So when guys step out of their comfort zone.
And some teams don't have that.
Right.
Some teams don't have like that. I think almost every team has a player that leads by example. Because basically, a player that leads by example, to me, is a player with work ethic. A contagious work ethic. Somebody that makes you want to come in early, someone that makes you want to stay after and get shots up, someone that makes you want to come in on your day off and better yourself. Every team does not have a vocal leader. They don't. And I know a lot of stars feel like, because they're the star, that means that they should be the vocal leader. I've always felt like that's one of the biggest misconceptions in NBA basketball.
Right.
That your best player has to be your vocal leader. I know.
You just gave us a great example. Avery Johnson.
Right.
You got 2 Hall of Famers in David Robinson and Tim Duncan. The leader is a guy that's, been drafted,
numerous times,
undersized, and
cut numerous times, right? So and some teams just don't have a vocal leader, period. That's why I feel like in today's NBA, one of the most undervalued and underrated things is the voice of a veteran. A voice of a veteran with experience that's been there before.
But also, it's one of the things, the reason why that's underrated is because there are a lot of guys in this league cannot handle the message delivered in certain ways. And that makes it even harder to be a vocal leader right now. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show. Look ahead, as I said, to Game 5 tomorrow night. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about Bronny James because you guys just can't get enough. It's Give and Go right here on NBA Radio.
Whether it's big on the block or blowing up your feet,
They not like us.
Hip Hop Nation is the sound of the culture. Top say drop, you better drop and give them 50. Presidential leaving the club, we ain't stopping at no light. The turn up starts here. Hip Hop Nation, always commercial free. Channel 44 and the SiriusXM app. Spread the word. Anyone can enjoy SiriusXM in the car during our Listen Free event happening now through June 3rd. There are some things that are too good to keep a secret. Like how your Amex Platinum card helps you have the perfect trip. I'd like to check into the Centurion Lounge.
Or how it seems like you always get those hard-to-snag tables. Ooh, yum. And how you get the most out of select campus events.
When am I supposed to be there at school?
Learn more at responsibleplay.org.
Certa-Pro Painters transforms your house into a home.
It's your last day. I don't think you're going. Played on teams where you're in this position where you have like a team dinner. You know, so you'll fly into Minnesota today, depending on the time that you get there, what time your flight is, and you'll have a team dinner where you kind of get together, talk, laugh, enjoy, whatever it may be. Then you get back to your room, and then it's just you chill out. You chill out. You check out. You check out physically. You check out mentally. You know, and you get your thoughts together because there's a lot of pressure on Dallas for this game tomorrow. Again, Minnesota's under pressure every game that they play because every time that they play, it's a win or lose. I mean, a make or break situation.
Win or go home.
It's a win or go home situation, exactly. So with Dallas, though, every game that you lose, Minnesota develops a little bit more hope. Because think about how the conversation has changed even today when you hear people talking about the Minnesota-Dallas series as opposed to how it was when it was 0-3. When it was 0-3, oh, it's over.
Yeah.
It's over. You know, again, why play, all this other kind of stuff. Now it's 3-1. It's like, oh, well, shoot. Well, if Minnesota get this one at home, then it's 3-2. They just beat Dallas in Dallas, so they got some confidence. You know what I mean? So it starts with one win. They got that one win. If I'm Minnesota, I understand that you come out and you're aggressive and you put a lot of the pressure on the Dallas Mavericks because, again, every game that you win, your hope in that locker room, it just grows a little bit more.
The interesting thing, I had completely forgotten that you were on that Portland team that came back to tie up the series at 6 before going to 7. The number of teams that have done it are very limited. I think it's maybe 5 or 6 in NBA history. And the most recent, of course, was last year in Boston. But, you know, I won't lie. You said to me earlier today that Cam's belief that if they're down 3-0, we don't even need to play the rest of the game. I was a little surprised, given that we saw it last year. And I know people, look, injuries are part of the game, whatever. Tatum got hurt in Game 7. But I guess I don't mean to say that as if Tatum were healthy, the Heat wouldn't have won. I mean it to say that once you get to a Game 7, isn't it anybody's game at that point? Like, there's no...
Listen, I mean, you know, me and Cam talked about this for about an hour and a half. Literally, half our show was on this. And he feels that when you're down 0-3, everything after that is irrelevant. Everything after that's irrelevant. Because what we were talking about is Devin Booker being down 0-3 to the same Minnesota Timberwolves team and him putting up 49, and he called that fake hustle.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
You know what I mean? He was like, okay, that's not a fake hustle. That's a guy that's showing up and trying to win to extend the series. And that's just my thought. And my thought is, as a player, you're not done until when we're eliminated, that's when we're done. Not a point prior to that do I feel that way.
It's staggering because I'm looking at the Game 7 that you guys played in and you lost. You guys were leading going into the fourth quarter. You had a 2-point lead going into the fourth.
My thoughts are different.
Like, it's, I guess, you know, I find it hard to believe that anyone could hold on to, no, it doesn't matter. When you say, wait a second, I was 12 minutes away from this.
But you know what Cam's response would be?
What's that?
You were 12 minutes away, but you still didn't win.
Well, it's because I think the undeniable thing is your margin of error is 0.
For sure. But your margin of error from here on out is 0 for the Minnesota Timberwolves. When you're down 0-3, your margin of error for error in game 4, and in game 5, and in game 6, and in game 7. So to play that way for 4 straight games is very, very difficult to do. It's a matter of time before it happens. It's a matter of time before it happens.
It has to be. AD, I say it all the time. It has to. Just by looking at the way the 3-point shooting has gone in this league, how many games have been decided because they hit their threes, they didn't. And it's not because, I tell people all the time, the number one determining factor for you having good 3-point defense is not the team missed a bunch of threes. The number one factor is they didn't take them. Because if they attempted the 3, it's already too late. Now you're really in make or miss league. You're just hoping you either make it or miss it. But that's not saying good contests and all that don't matter. Of course they matter. But overall, the best 3-point defenses are the ones that they bring you off the line.
Great.
And so, I'm with you. It's only a matter of time before someone has a hot fourth quarter and another one has a cold fourth quarter, and that's it.
And we're having a different conversation.
Absolutely.
All right, that's going to do it for us. Special thanks to our producers, Corbett and Garvey. Thanks to our guests, Tim Legler, Jenny Fry.
NBA Today is next. A. Johnson and that guy, Justin Terminal. Hey, Boston.
Hey, everybody. I'm former IndyCar driver James Hinchcliffe.
And I'm Indy 500 winner and current IndyCar driver Alexander Rossi. And we're the hosts of Off Track with Hinch and Rossi.
With the Indianapolis 500 officially in the books, we will be bringing every single one of you a plethora of entertaining race-related content, including an in-depth recap of the race, driver breakdowns, and overall thoughts from the greatest spectacle in racing.
So download Off Track now on the all-new SiriusXM app or wherever you get your podcasts.
The IRS is the most powerful collection agency on earth, and if you owe back taxes, the news isn't good. The IRS is raising the interest rate it charges on unpaid taxes, and further rate hikes are expected. Most people don't know it, but the IRS adds interest charges to your tax debts daily. So if you owe the IRS today, you'll owe even more tomorrow. And it doesn't stop until you get right with the IRS. The good news is getting right can start with one phone call to Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax relief firm. Optima's tax professionals specialize in the Fresh Start Initiative, a powerful IRS program that can save you thousands if you qualify. In fact, the experts at Optima have resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients. Call now for a free consultation.
Call 800-516-4583. 800-516-4583. 800-516-4583.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
This is the SiriusXM Sports Update.
Jefferson County is dropping all charges against Scotty Scheffler stemming from his arrest at this year's PGA Championship outside Valhalla Golf Club. He had faced multiple charges, including felony second-degree assault of a police officer. NBA, Bronny James staying in the draft, according to his agent Rich Paul, only going to work out for the Lakers and Suns, possibly a couple of others as well. The Lakers pick at number 17 in the first round. Clippers coach Ty Lue reportedly agreed to a long-term extension, making him one of the highest paid in the NBA. NFL, Yannick Ngakoue looking for his next team after spending a bit of a down 2023 with the Bears. The pass rusher told SiriusXM NFL Radio.
I haven't really been thinking about an offer or details in specific at all. The only thing I've been thinking about is taking that grass again and reestablishing myself on the field as one of the fiercest competitors in the game today. So that's the only thing on my mind. Everything else will come after that.
At the French Open, three-time champ Iga Swiatek had to save match point and fought off unseeded but former #1 Naomi Osaka in 3 sets. Coco Gauff through to the third round as well. In the men's draw, favorites Carlos Alcaraz, Andrei Rublev, and Stefano Tsitsipas all advanced. On the diamond, Texas second baseman Marcus Semion's game-started streak ended today at 349. His Rangers on top. The D-backs 2-zip in the 5th. Cardinals finishing off the Reds 4-2 in the 9th. Tigers blank the Pirates 8-zip in the first game of their twin bill. Second game underway now with Paul Skeens on the hill for Pittsburgh. From the SiriusXM Sports Newsroom, this is Alex Perlman.
If it's happening in sports, it's happening on SiriusXM.